Have you ever had someone dismiss you on something, on like an idea you might have had, and then later that thing blows up in a major way, in a great way? Today, I want to talk to you about one of the most recent lessons that I've learned, and that is don't expect quality advice from unqualified people. Hi everyone, my name is Erin. If you are new here, welcome. Listen, you can read all about me on my website, inthecash.com. You can even check out my IG. But if you are not new here and you have been rocking with me, oh my God, then you know that my journey as just a working woman and a working woman in tech at that, honey. My journey has been roller coaster, and I'm just here to basically share some of the more recent things that have happened and share some of the lessons that I learned along the way. As you can clearly see, I've kind of changed the setup. Yeah, we bought a house, praise the Lord. And I wanted to get cozy. I wanted to get on the couch because I am the only girl in the room. And most of the time I have been the only girl in the room. So let's just get right to it. Okay, so I'm all about show and tell these days. So I am wearing one of the nice little gifts that you get when you are in a Harvard Law School executive education program. Y'all, I had an entire blast, and I am excited to tell you, I think the last time we spoke, I might have been talking about my journey or my road to Google, and now I've got an entirely different story to tell and what that has meant, basically what led me to Harvard, more specifically, what led me to Harvard Law, because y'all, it was not on my bingo card. It was not on my career bingo card. So if you aren't caught up on my career journey and my story, I've done a ton of podcasts recently where I talk about growing up in Little Rock, Arkansas, and how I ended up being a privacy engineer. Let me catch you up to where the story last left off. So I joined Google in February of 2021. Yes, it was quite the time to be at a tech company, a big tech company, because it was during COVID and it was a whole new world. And so, of course, you hear a lot of people talk about imposter syndrome coming into a place like Google. And honestly, I was intimidated. I definitely was. And I was joining a team where, we had it was a small team where we had lawyers, we had PhDs, we had people who had went to MIT. And so, here I am coming from a state school, which shout outs to the University of Houston. I knew I had what it took or what it takes. Trust me when I say that there were no cheat sheets for these type of interviews. And at the same time, I had a good 20 plus years of experience. And so I wasn't concerned. I knew I had what it took. I just needed to convince some other people. So a year goes by and am on a privacy team that deals with all of what we call bets, right? So you've heard of X Moonshots, you've heard of Waymo, you've heard of DeepMind, Intrinsic. There's a whole bunch of them, but basically all of these other companies that are under the Alphabet umbrella, my team basically did all of the privacy consulting for those groups. So I have always had a level of curiosity that I never let anything technically intimidate me. It's kind of if I'm curious about it, if I find it exciting, I'm just going to dive right in and consume all the knowledge that I can. And so what I started to notice is when product teams would come to us, especially robotics products teams, all of them would have similar questions. And so I started to notice this trend around what we now call robotics privacy. So I'm on this privacy team with all of these heavy hitters. I'm intimidated, but as I start to work with product teams and start to kind of get my feet wet and understand what I'm doing here, which took a good 6 months. But once I started to get my groove, I was like, wait a minute. I ask good questions. In fact, I ask great questions. And I learned lesson number 1, imposter syndrome. It ain't real. It's not. And I'll tell you how I know. typically when you have confidence going into an interview and you know it's backed by you've gotten the education, you've gotten the experience, or I do this work, nobody can really tell you who you are. Nobody. So fast forward, I start to notice that all of these robotics teams had the same types of questions. And I go, I think I got something here. Which brings me to lesson number 2. Always, always, always go with your gut. Your intuition is real. In this case, I genuinely felt like nobody is talking about this, and where do robotics teams have to go, whether internally or externally, when they want to know a little bit more about their products as it relates to privacy by design? Okay, so time goes by. I have started to draft some of my findings or, things that I want to recommend to all robotics teams. And I'm meeting with different people in the organization, and I'm just not really getting the traction or the same passion around this topic that I felt. And so a mentor of mine at the time, Rob, said to me, you build through coalition. And I didn't quite really know what that meant, but this is where my experience kind of came in. So working as an IT auditor, I never had a problem reaching out to anyone, because that type of career, it teaches you both how to be friendly with people, but also how to expect things in terms of confrontation or things that you're just not going to like, or having to basically find a middle road between bridging a yes from both parties that you can agree on. That's an internal audit discussion, but anyway. So I'm not getting the traction that I want. So I did the thing that I don't think most people would do, but that's okay. That's why my name is Erin. I reached out to, yes, that. And what's crazy, you guys, is like I had not been at Google, I think, a year. And blind emailed her, explaining to her that, hey, I'm working with these robotics teams. I'm a privacy engineer. And y'all, here's lesson number 3. Don't ever be afraid to ask a question, especially if it's a yes or no question, because my mother always told me you got a 50-50 odds of getting a yes. And I like those odds. So with a little bit of blind faith, and actually did me a complete solid, y'all. The organization that she had belonged to at the time, she was able to put me in touch with a lot of different robotics experts, specialists who really kind of lended their insights to what I was working on and really believed in my project as well. And so all of a sudden, we got the ball rolling. So lesson number 4 is build a team. Seriously, build that coalition for whatever it is that you're trying to do. But you, like I said, you still have to have like that intuition, like I've got something. But in my case, it was building that coalition, and that all of a sudden things started to roll, and this is getting good. Like, the meat's getting juicy. And I'll just say that with building a team, your ROI is always going to be better. 10 out of 10, highly recommend. Okay, so I'm working with a team of people who are also believing in this robotics privacy. Then all of a sudden, y'all, the rug got pulled from under me. I think that was the year that they had these massive layoffs. And in those layoffs, I, 1, lost my manager who was supporting my work. I, 2, lost my team, which they weren't let go, but they basically disbanded the band. And then 3, at that time, I was moved into different work where I wasn't necessarily focused on product privacy, but more so privacy governance. And so I've got this new manager, and manager knows that I was working on this robotic stuff, and he's like, I'll tell you what, let's try and get your work published. Let's see if we can publish it externally. And so why is this a big deal, y'all? It's a big deal to get published because, 1, a lot of the things that we work on are proprietary and we can't talk about it outside of work. And so you have to get permission to talk about such things. And I think more so for me, it was because I was working on things that, you're not going to see for a few years. Like, this is really proprietary IP, and this is Fight Club. You can't talk about Fight Club. So a year goes by, y'all. A whole year of me trying to get approval for this paper to be published. And that brings me to lesson number 5. You have to know the rules in order to break them. Submitting to other people's processes can suck sometimes, especially if this process wasn't necessarily designed for you, right? Many times in life, what you will start to see is the rules apply to you, but they don't apply to anyone else. And I am not suggesting that is what happened here. I think that's just an important anecdote that everyone should take with them, that you genuinely have to understand how the rules go, because if you don't, one, you can slow your own process or your own progress, and two, don't create hurdles for yourself. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean by breaking the rules. Like, you got to know them in order to break them. Like, when you know the rules, you can find shortcuts where people have just like had to do all the hurdles. You can prevent those by knowing, where the pitfalls are, basically. But let's continue. So here's where I'm sitting, I'm stewing, right? Just stewing, because I'm trying to get this paper published. I want to talk about robotics privacy, and all these things are happening in the public, and AI is starting to get hot, and I'm just like, argh! This is where things got really interesting. Because what do you do when nothing is going your way? Your career's not going the way you want it to. This special thing that you really are passionate about is not going the way that you want it to. What do you do? And I'm going to have to tell you about in the next video, because this one's getting long. Sorry. Stay tuned. I will see you guys later, and feel free to subscribe if you want to. That's only if you want to, because we're talking about my road to Harvard Law. Bye.